Hi everyone, welcome to Here We Are, Brattleboro's community weekly talk show. I'm Wendy O'Connell, and today on Here We Are, we have Mike Fitzgerald, our Chief of Police of Brattleboro. Welcome, Mike.
Welcome, thank you.
Yeah, thanks so much for being with us today
My
and
pleasure.
taking time out of your very busy day. I know it is. When I was preparing for the show, I was just starting to, look at some information. And one of the things that struck me is that when we think about police, we think automatically about crime. And I have a pretty good feeling that that's a percentage of what you do, but not the whole story.
That's a
myth.
It is a myth. It's a big myth. That's probably the least of what we do. If you had to look at our activities throughout the day. It's certainly a huge component of what we do and a very important component. But we do a vast majority of quality life issues and calls for services and things of that nature. So, yep, we do criminal work, but we do far more quality of life issues.
Yeah.
Is like
and when you say quality of life, what kinds of examples do you have for that?
Things where if you have no idea who to call, you have questions about things, from everything from the weather-related instances, rodents in your home, your bats in the attic, problems raising your children, dealing with, you have families that are dealing with members that are suffering from mental health crises. Yeah. They will most certainly call to seek our advice. Families that are suffering with those that are in the grips of addiction, they will call and seek our advice, and not always in emergency. It's just, what can we do? And then of course you have the your everyday just run of the mill,
So people still look to you when something is happening that they don't have control over. People are still calling you.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
We're like the problem solvers.
Right.
If you come across something that you're not quite sure what to do, dead skunks in the road. We get calls, there's a dead skunk in the road. What do we do? Or there's a skunk in my yard. Or there's a raccoon under my porch. Yeah. Just everyday life's problems where it doesn't fit in a nice, neat package. Yes. I can guarantee you our dispatch is probably going to get the call.
I was going to say, I bet your dispatcher is real busy. Well, it's 24 hours a day.
That is correct.
You have a dispatcher, right? Yeah, going into things. And I was thinking also that I remember you saying that police are the face of government. And I was remembering, and I think this is correct, I could be wrong, that police were called the keepers of the peace for many years, like
yes,
a long time ago. When did that change happen?
From what?
From being from being keepers of the peace to the face of the government.
If I had to guess, and would be strictly my opinion, 100% my opinion, I would say, like with during frustration, times of frustrations. So in my lifetime, that certainly would have been within the 60s. Yep. Where if there was any type of disagreement with government policies, whether that be local, state, or federal, we were the face, because we were used to enforce those policies that may not have been so popular. And, so we took the brunt of it, even though we didn't make the policy, we didn't vote for the policy, but we enforced the policy.
You're a law enforcer.
Right.
Right, that's what a policeman is.
Right.
And so you are just doing what the law says. Yeah. And another thing that you mentioned that I thought was really interesting is that when you came on as a police officer, I believe around 2000.
Correct. Yeah.
That you described it as having a warrior mentality, because there was the war on drugs, then there was the war on terrorism a year later, and can you describe that? Obviously, it has lasted for a period of time.
It has.
But you're seeing a shift. Is that correct?
Right. And I have officers on my department that their whole entire life since birth, United States has been involved in some type of conflict one way or another. Starting with the Desert Shield, Desert Storm in 90-92 time frame. So, I have officers that they were born when that's happened. So as they were growing up, we were involved in some form of conflict. So that's what they have known all their life. That led to a mindset in law enforcement to where that you're constantly a combatant, and nothing could be further from the truth. You need to be a warrior when that need arises. But in the meantime, you need to be more of a guardian to your community. You need to be able, you forget the serving part, the protect and serve. You know, the guardian is the serving. The warrior is the protector.
Yeah.
So you have to know when to pull up the guardian and when to pull up the warrior.
Yeah.
So, and I would say a majority of our time, we need to be more guardians, more stewards in what we do, and not so much a combatant or a warrior.
Right. And that has a lot to do, I would think, well, it has to do with training, for one thing, and your relationship to the community because of that training.
Well, we totally had to rebrand the department. We took a step back and did an assessment. We went division by division by division in each department and said, okay, what do we do good and how we can make that better? And what do we do not so good and make that much, much better?
Yeah.
And we went division by division by division. And then the next thing we did is so that was an internal assessment. And then we did an assessment with how the community views us, because we're only as successful in what we do as the trust the community gives in us. If you have a community, and we've seen it all over this nation, that doesn't trust its police force, your police force is basically ineffective. It truly is. Yeah. You need the community to be a successful police department. So we've now went out into the community and said, okay, and I didn't go out there with the attitude of this is how you're going to get policed. More of a how do you want to be policed mentality. And that's what we did, and we took all that in. So to rebrand the department, we had to say, okay, let's look at de-escalation techniques on our hiring and retention of our officers. You know, let's make sure that they're very proficient in problem solving. Like I said earlier, de-escalation, problem solving, objectivity, and empathy. And not only did we look at those aspects, but that's now part of our hiring process. That's part of our promotional process. It is not a big deal to me on how many people you arrested or did not arrest, how many tickets you wrote or how many tickets you didn't write. I'm more concerned about the other aspects that we just discussed, because that is going to make you successful within the community, and that is what's going to promote the department and the way the department needs to be promoted. So we took a real nice giant step back, redid our mission statement. That basically, in a nutshell, is our philosophy on how we want to be policed, and that is, you know, the difference between those who need our help, those who made a poor decision, and those who choose to victimize others. And that is the mindset our officers have when they go to that call. They'll sit there and look and say, okay, is this an individual who needs help? Is this an individual who just made a bad decision? Or is this an individual who truly chooses to victimize others? And then we act accordingly. And those are fantastic guidelines. And I'm very proud of the fact that that's not Fitzgerald words of wisdom. The officers themselves came up with that. They formed a committee, and that's what they presented to me, and I was just like, it's like one of those, they get it. You know, I mean, it was fantastic because that came from them to me. It wasn't shoved down to them, and I knew we were making great strides when you have a group of officers that come with that. That
come up with that, and them coming up with themselves also says a lot about the way they've been trained, I would imagine too, and where and what they were interested in as far as being a law enforcement officer.
It's consistency. It has to start at the top and go all the way down. You know, it has to be totally ingrained
Yeah.
in everything we do.
Yeah.
And with that mentality, we looked at our policies. We made sure our policies reflected our philosophy.
Yeah.
And we also made sure that our policies reflected what we actually did. You know, and if we didn't like what we were actually doing, then we retrained. You know, and so it was really a total shakeup.
Yeah, when was this?
Upside down. That was 2000. Well, it's still ongoing.
Uh-huh.
Well, yeah, and it will be for quite a while,
Yeah.
I assume. You know, it's a living, breathing animal. It's,
Right.
it's nothing you're going to do and say, okay, done, next. We started probably around 2014, 2015.
So it's pretty recent, actually.
Yes,
Yeah.
that's what I mean. We're still in the infancy stage, but I would like to think, and I would match up our department against any department in the state, that we have made great strides in our areas of transparency, our areas of accountability, what we're looking for in our officers, and holding our officers
Yeah.
accountable, and you know that procedural justice when we go out and we answer a call for service, that it's fair, it's impartial,
Right.
it's objective,
Yeah.
the way it should be, and that we have compassion and empathy. People make mistakes. Doesn't make them bad people. They made a mistake.
Yeah.
They made a poor decision.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I would think that, you know, when you get a call, you never know what the call is going to be, but you have to be prepared, whether it's a fender bender on Route 5,
Right.
you know, or someone, you know, holding a gun to somebody's head. I mean, it's a whole gamut of things.
That's very true. And the information we get prior to going to that call is also very, very limited. And it could be information that's not very reliable. You know, someone could have said, you know, they saw a weapon. And that automatically, in your mindset now, you're going into a scenario where there are weapons involved.
Yeah.
So, you really have to be able to make some pretty tough decisions
And quick.
in a split second.
Yes. So when you were talking about changing negative views and all of this rebranding and everything, are you finding models elsewhere in other parts of the country?
Oh yeah, we're not blazing the trails
Yeah.
here. For police departments to survive today, you have to go back to the community. It's no longer us against them, which it never should have been in the beginning, but
Right.
I'm sure there was. We have to recognize that we have faults. We have to recognize that we have people that aren't quite up to standard, and we have to take appropriate action with those individuals. We have to be held accountable. And I think you're seeing that. We have to be transparent. And it's scary, but I'm finding out that the support I'm getting throughout the community is just phenomenal.
Well, that's wonderful.
It is. Like I say, it's scary to step out there and, you know, bare your chest and say, look, you know what, we made mistakes here, or, you know, we're not the best at what we do there.
What kind of feedback do you get? Is it letters? Is it phone calls? Is it running into people on the street?
Everything. Yep, everything from going to meetings to the emails, or if there was a report in the paper that comes back. A lot of it now is I'm not up to speed on it, so please let's not go too deep. But it's social media,
Yes.
like Facebook,
Yeah,
Twitter,
sure.
all that
Right,
other.
right,
My
yeah.
younger officers will bring it into my office and, you know, hey chief, check this out, and that's about the extent of my knowledge.
That's great,
So-
though, to have younger people on
Yeah.
board, right?
Yeah.
Yeah,
So,
that's wonderful.
But we're very active on it. We, you know, I understand that you have to be involved in social media
Yeah,
today,
yeah.
because that's the way people communicate.
Yes,
If-
yes.
You know, when I was growing up, you wrote a letter, put a stamp on it, and mailed it.
That's right.
Today, you pick up your phone and
And you can film things. That's the
And
other
you can
thing.
film
yeah,
things,
things
yep.
can be videoed and sent. Yeah, so there's much more transparency
Oh,
just by
sure.
its very nature.
Yep.
So you grew up in Brattleboro.
yes.
Yes. And did you want to be a policeman when you were a kid?
I did.
Yeah.
In high school, during career day, I did a ride along with the Vermont State Police, and had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
I truly did. I had a lot of fun.
After high school, what did you do?
I went in the Marine Corps.
did.
I've always wanted to be in the Marine Corps. That was probably the number one love of my life that I wanted to do. And it worked out really, really well. I was blessed because you couldn't be a police officer till you were 21. When I graduated high school, I was like, okay, well, I got 3 years to kill. I can kill two birds with one stone. I could go in the Marine Corps, fulfill that dream, and then get out and become a law enforcement officer. And I went into the Marine Corps, and 3 years led to 8 to 12 to 18 to 20. Did a little over 20 years in, had the time of my life, traveled all around the world, just absolutely loved it. And then when that part of my life ended, I was like, okay, well, what's my next dream? Well, law enforcement. So I came back home and applied and got accepted.
Yeah. Well, going back to the Marines for a little while. So the Marines are one of the hardest, most difficult, taxing military organizations to be part of. And that's something that you dreamed about. Not only did you dream about it, but you flourished there. You loved it. What was it about it that you liked so much?
It was, what I liked about it was the discipline. I've been accused of not borderline, but very deeply OCD tendencies. I like organization. I like things that fit. I like to know where I stand. I like to know what is expected of me. And the Marine Corps had left no doubt in my mind where they wanted you to be, what they wanted you to do, and how they wanted it done. And that, I mean, you wouldn't find too many teenage young men that, you know, folded their t-shirts, and I was one of those nerds that I just liked it. What they taught me was just skills that you cannot get anywhere else, and that is on how to deal with people. Can you imagine how diverse the Marine Corps is? I mean, you have all walks of life, from you know Minnesota to Texas to Maine to California, all religions, you know, male, female. It just, and you all have to get along. And if you're put in a leadership position, you have to lead all those different people. So you have to reach all those people.
Right.
And you learn real quick what's important and what's not important. You know, it's not important who you pray to. It's not important the color of your skin. It's not important who you choose to love the rest of your life. Those are not important. You know, so why are you dwelling on them? And you get past all that, and you get to the heat, or the meat that's on the bone. And okay, what do we need to do? How are we going to do it?
When you talk about leadership, it's learning and being trained in strategy and how to go about that, and how to bring a group of people together to be in the same place with the same goal.
And keeping them motivated and trained and things of that nature, absolutely. And like I said, you can't go to school for that. You actually have to be immersed in it. Not everything goes as planned. And you better be able to think on your feet really, really fast. Because if you don't, there could be some dire consequences. So you got to be able to make some really, really tough decisions really, really fast with extremely limited information. And so to be flexible. You know, you could spend weeks, if not maybe a month or more, depending on the type of operation that you go out to do an op order. And I can tell you right now from numerous experiences, 6 hours into your operation, that operations order isn't worth the paper it's written on. You know, because helicopters have landed in wrong spot, trucks have broken down, you know, you've met resistance where you weren't expected resistance, and you blew right through where you expected to be bottlenecked for days. And what you thought looked like a nice linear thing will, you know, looks like a zipper. And you better, your mission's still the same. Your goals are still the same. So you better learn how to adapt, be flexible, and
you have to
come up with solutions.
You have to shift gears pretty quickly. You went to a lot of very cool places as well,
absolutely.
right?
Absolutely.
Any ones off the top of your head?
I personally loved the over Southeast Asia. absolutely, absolutely loved it over there. The whole Japan, Okinawa, Korea, Thailand, Singapore, that type, because it was new to me. It was very different. And I was young and very impressionable. Perfect time of your life to go over there and just, wow, try new things and just be immersed in a whole culture that I never even knew existed to such depth. You know, as a young 18-year-old kid from Vermont.
Yeah, and you had time to go off base and to take part in the culture.
Oh, absolutely. And matter of fact, they encouraged that. You would have actual, cultural officers that would come on base that were from the community right outside of the base, and they would teach you the language, they would teach you the customs, the food, their special holidays. They'd explain to you what they were and why.
Yeah, and so you did that for 20 years, all this wide-ranging travel, and then you come back to Brattleboro. And when you came back to Brattleboro, were you a police officer? Did you?
Yes.
Okay, and so you were on the streets. You were doing things in the community itself. But all of your training, it seems, led to being a chief, being in charge, being the guy who knows what to do next. Yeah.
Well, if you asked me 18 years ago, I would have said no, never.
Yeah,
I never want to be in that seat.
Really?
Because you have a lot of fun.
Yeah. I was going to say, do you miss it?
I do. I miss it a lot because you're directly connected with the community.
Yes.
I'm the face of the department, but the men and women, the officers underneath me, they're the ones that are doing all the good hard work. They're out there and they're the ones getting to know people and talk to people and things of that nature. I'm more of a, meetings, budgets, administrative stuff like that. Very important. I'm trying to convince myself that, but critical, important, but
it is,
sometimes it's dry.
It is very important. It absolutely is very important. But at the same time, I wonder if I was thinking of that, if you miss being out on the streets.
Absolutely.
And do we still have a foot patrol in town?
We do. And basically how we do it is every officer of every shift walks an hour. Somewhere either in the downtown district, other neighborhoods. I mean, we have a really large area, so it's not like everyone will always be in the Elliott Street Transportation Center area all the time. We can't neglect the outskirts and certain neighborhoods and things of that nature. So, but what we try to do is every shift officers walk about an hour, either in the neighborhood or the downtown district. At a minimum, I want them out of the cruiser, walking around.
Oh, good. That's good.
We truly promote and encourage them to visit schools, read, play at recess. We are very active in the Big Brothers, Big Sisters, Bigs in Blue program. So we have our littles that we go there once a week and have lunch with them and do recess with them.
That's great.
Go down to the Boys and Girls Club, shoot some pool, shoot some hoops. Get out of your cruiser and just talk to people. Walk around. Go to one of the local coffee shops and sit down and have a coffee, for a half hour, 45 minutes. That's what I want you to do.
That's great.
It is. And I think that is very important.
Yeah.
It is hugely important. Number one, to have people be able to have the opportunity to talk to you in a non-traditional law enforcement setting.
Yeah.
Where they can just come up and say, hey, you know what? This happened, blah, 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 blah. What should I have done? Or, what did it mean when this officer did this, and this, and this? At the time, if you're dealing, like if it's like a criminal incident, we always don't have the time to sit down and explain everything from A to Z. We got to, secure the scene. We have, evidence that we have to gather, interviews to conduct, maybe a suspect to process. It's really not a time for us to take 15, 20 minutes to discuss what we're doing and why.
Yeah.
So to give the community that opportunity, I think, is critical. You have to, because they're gonna remember we talked about the void?
Yes.
They're going to fill the void themselves.
Yes. Can you explain that a little?
Yeah. The void is why, that's my term. It's when they really don't fully understand what happened or why it happened. And they either sit down and talk amongst each other over the dinner table and they come up with their own conclusion, or you get it from, heaven forbid, social media, and you fill the unknown or unanswered questions that you had.
Yeah.
I'd much rather have it come from us, because there you're going to get very accurate, the truth. This is what we did and this is why we did it. I'm not saying you're going to agree. I'm not saying you're going to like it, but you're going to hear exactly what we did and why we did it.
And you're making connection with the community.
Absolutely.
And I think that's the thing that's most important and that we as citizens appreciate more than anything else, is that we can approach you. You know, we can come up to you and, like you say, ask you questions. And also, I know that you're very connected with a lot of the organizations in town and a lot of the people who are running the organizations. So when we go back to the quality of life issues, you know who to call, you know the referrals, where to send people.
Exactly.
And that kind of thing. And that's what makes a community, right?
It does.
Yeah.
And we don't have all the answers. And that's the first thing you need to do, is put your hand up and say, I need help.
Right.
And to do that, you have to go to the subject matter experts.
I think that you are experts in many more subjects than we think you are, or maybe not experts.
That's true.
But I think that you know a lot. You're much more widespread as an organization, I think, than most folks realize. A final question for you is, Mike, is, well, there are two things. One is, do you watch the crime shows?
No, I do not.
None of them.
No. And that's the truth. No. No.
Not going there.
Not in, no. It'd be depressing because they solve everything.
They do.
In 45 minutes, and that's
just not
excluding
fair.
commercials.
Yeah. And so, what do you do for fun?
We do. It's seasonal dependent. So
we're all seasonal dependent.
Yeah, up here, absolutely. Spring, summer, and fall, we like to do. We have an RV, and we will go just 2 or 3 hours away.
Yeah.
Up into the mountains and park it up there, and just bring our dogs and grandchildren if our daughters will release them to us, and just basically hang out for 3 or 4 days. So we do a lot of camping, hiking, things of that nature. During the winter time is more of a interior within the house. We have a very, very, very old farmhouse that we're restoring. So usually November to March is what we do on the inside.
Yeah.
Everything,
Instead of 365 days a year, right, with an old farmhouse.
It is, and it's, you go there now, some parts of it looks pretty bad. But other parts look really nice, and we're not even going to get to it until November, and that's right. That's just the way we decided to do it, and I absolutely love it because, like you said, I'm not inside when it's a beautiful day like today out.
Right. That's great.
I can be outside.
That's great. Well, that's one. I'm glad you do it. I'm glad your OCD nature just settles down a little bit, right? And you can kick back. That's great. Thank you, Mike.
Well, it was a pleasure.
It was lovely. It was wonderful having you on. I really appreciate it. I love, letting the folks out in the community know what you're doing.
Well, thank you for giving me the opportunity, because I think that's really, really important. Our men and women do a lot of good things every single day that just goes unnoticed, and sometimes it gets to be the point where it's expected. Yeah. And like I say, the community really, really needs to recognize and appreciate all the hard work the young men and women do at this department. That's right. Because they work hard.
Knowing that you're approachable on the street makes a big difference too, to get that word out, to go up and say hi. Thanks.
You're welcome.
We will be back next week with another edition, another episode of Here We Are.